Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Daily Football Roundup proudly brings to you the best damn podcast in the world, the 12-ounce Curl Route Podcast. Let's drag down that a little longer.
There you go.
I'm your host, Aaron Current. You can find me on Twitter or X at Aaron Current. My co-host, Corey, is not on those. And how are you doing, brother? How was your week?
Well, as you can see in my voice, I'm still not back to 100%.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we had the devil inside of us this week. But the tornadoes have passed. The internet's back up and running. So that part should be fixed at least.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear, brother. Had a lot of news and stuff break this week. As many know, the trade deadline just passed yesterday. So we're going to go over that later in the show after the six-pack challenge. A ton of injuries. I don't know how we'll cover all of those. It seemed like every backup quarterback in the NFL is now a starter. Just a wild weekend in the NFL. It's just crazy. But Kyle is on his way. He'll jump in when he gets here. But I'm going to go ahead and get us started.
Let's do it.
So the first game last week, the 12-ounce Curl Route Podcast, big spread of the week. The New England Patriots traveled down to South Beach to take on the Miami Dolphins. They lose the game 31-17. Myself and Corey had Miami picked. Kyle thought that maybe the Patriots, after a win, could cover the spread down there. And honestly, for a lot of the game, because honestly, I was watching the Titans because my son plays for the Titans on his middle school team. So the Bears didn't play until the night. I was like, yeah, let's watch the Titans, see what Levis does, which I'm repping my Levis jersey today because he's I'm glad to see him finally getting a shot. You know, we were standing on an island alone on him, but we'll maybe get into that later. It was a close game for a lot of it. At least it seemed like it when I was seeing the scores come across the bottom and stuff. And then Miami just seemed to pull away at the second half. I know Jalen Ramsey came back, had a pick, and I don't know. Another week in New England, it seems like this year, man. That's you're not used to this, are you, Corey?
No, we are now the statistically, based on all the tiebreakers, the worst team in the AFC. That's tough. It almost seemed like this game, Miami was spotted 7, and then it kind of went, 14-0, 7-14, like that. Miami didn't look the best, even though they did get Ramsey back. But I still think they're a top 3 team in the AFC. New England's going to fight. They're always going to fight, even without they lost another player this week as well.
Oh, who went down this week?
I can't remember off the top of my head. But I heard it because I was flipping between this game and another one. And I heard it, and I was like, well, that's about right. With Judon down and Gonzalez out already too. Yeah. So we ended up not really making any moves, which shocker. I didn't expect us to, especially since we are in line for the 5th overall pick right now.
I thought you guys may lean into it and get rid of some players. I know Uche was a big rumor, and then your left tackle, I believe his contract's coming up as well. And there were some rumors out about him, but at the end of the day, they stayed put with what they had, and I guess they're just going to roll forward. And the way things are going in college ball, you might have Caleb Williams fall right into your lap. I mean,
well, I don't want Caleb Williams, but yeah, it's. I think the core is pretty young and really, really good on defense, and I think as far as like the tackle and stuff like that, there may be a chance that we actually pay these people this time around because I don't think it's going to cost that much versus like when we had our big studs that we would let go after 4 years. Mac Jones, I mean, he had an okay game. It's just not him. And I hope for the sake of Pats fans everywhere that I think they just pull the trigger and have him as a backup.
Yeah, I think that's the solid move. Kyle, we're still on the first game. We covered New England losing to Miami.
I've been following along. I was thinking about being like the Green Bay Packers and waiting until we got about halfway through and then finally showing up. But I decided I wanted to get in here. Kendrick Bourne just went on IR, the wide receiver for the New England.
There you go. Thank you.
That's
He was actually had him in a few fantasy leagues because he was
doing
the
good.
only person doing anything on that offense. But yeah, I had this covered until the end of the game when Miami scored another touchdown. And
oh no,
yeah, so
well, you almost had it.
So close.
We'll move on to our nail biter of the week, which was the Minnesota Vikings traveling to the frozen tundra of Green Bay to take on the Green Bay Packers. Minnesota wins this game 24-10. We all had Minnesota covering, as much as it hurt Kyle to admit that. The Vikings win the game, but in doing so, Kirk Cousins, was it an ACL or his Achilles that went?
Achilles.
So he's out for the rest of the year. They did make a trade. I mean, I guess we can just talk about it. They made a trade for Josh Dobbs. They said he's not going to start this week. They're letting the rookie start a week so Dobbs can kind of learn the offense a little bit, I guess. But, I mean, the guy's a rocket scientist. It's not going to take him long to pick up an offense, I don't think. Kind of a boring game, honestly. I didn't see anything one way or the other to really change my mind about either of these teams, other than Kirk going down and the Vikings just slogging through to what seems to me like they'll probably finish around 500. Kyle, anything for you on this one? Or
I don't personally think the Vikings now finish 500. I think they're going to finish below that. I don't think that they're going to be able to bounce back, losing Justin Jefferson and now losing Kirk Cousins. I think this is, even at 4-4, this is a lost season for Minnesota. If this helps in any way, it's going to be that they get Kirk Cousins next year, and they haven't done this yet, but they get him on a discount. And not to say that, his injury is, you never want to see somebody get hurt, but this is beneficial for the Vikings if they want to bring Kirk Cousins back, and it sounds like they do, because Josh Dobbs is just a 1-year stopgap. Personally, I thought that they would go after a different Arizona Cardinals quarterback and go after Kyler Murray and solve a long-term issue there. But again, what does Kyler look like coming back from that ACL? The Green Bay also made a trade. They traded away corner Rasul Douglas, who was one of the leaders in their locker room, one of the vets on the team, actually. He had signed last year, signed a 3-year, $21 million deal. So he's averaging about $7 million a year. Pick up a third, give up him in a fifth. Whereas the Vikings, not only did they trade for Kirk Cousins, they also traded away guard Ezra Cleveland, who went to Jacksonville. So some big trades that I was hoping to see. And while there was a numerous amounts of trades, I wouldn't say, there was 2 that we'll talk about that were huge, but Derrick Henry, D-Hop, guys like that didn't get moved.
For me, it comes as a great loss. I was actually shocked when I seen Dobbs come across the thing, but at the same time, look, he's not oh my God, Cousins. He's not Cousins, but like, depending on what they're trying to do, still, who knows? With Justin Jefferson potentially coming back next week, I think next week is official IR off.
He went on IR when they played the Bears. I don't know how long ago that was.
Okay, well, it should be relatively soon, but maybe there is no quit in them, and maybe they try something here. Who knows? Cam Akers come out and kind of looked decent for them. They traded for him in the off season, I think, or week 1.
Yeah, he had their first rushing touchdown of the year.
So I think they're still trying for something. If nothing else, the NFC's wide open for wild cards right now. So
as of right now, I think they hold like the 7th seed in the wild.
I believe so. Yeah.
So I mean, why not play? I mean, they're going to be kind of the middle of the pack anyway, and they usually do decent drafting in the middle of the pack. So I don't see one way or the other. I think they go around 500. But like I said, NFC wild card. I think there might be 2 teams that go under 500 that make the wild card. Who knows?
I mean, I don't know.
For me, Corey said that you were surprised by the Josh Dobbs trade. As soon as Arizona came out and said that Clayton Tune or Kyler Murray were starting this week, I knew Josh Dobbs was getting traded. Josh Dobbs has not looked bad enough in that Arizona offense for them to say, hey, we're moving on from you.
Yeah.
That made sense that he was getting moved. Just didn't know exactly where to. I mean, the Vikings make a ton of sense, but you have Washington, which Sam Howell just had a huge game, so I guess that doesn't make as much sense. But teams like Atlanta and things of that nature, the Giants, bunch of different teams I think that were in contention.
Well, speaking of Washington, that's our next game. Sunday at 1:00, the Philadelphia Eagles travel to, is it FedEx Field still? I think.
Who knows? Landover, Maryland, something. I don't know.
We all had Philly covering, and they dang near got backdoor covered on this one. They won by 7. The spread was 6.5. Those buildings in Las Vegas are not built on losing. I don't know what it is about Washington and Philly that Washington they give them problems, and I don't know if it was the talent that they had last week that they no longer have, or what the issue is with them against Washington. I mean, it's a divisional game. Maybe that's part of it. I really don't know, but bottom line, Philly wins. Philly covers. We all had it. I don't know what else I can say about it. Corey, what did you feel on this game?
I mean, Washington was the one that beat them, give them their first loss last year, wasn't it? When they were like 9-0 or something like that. So Washington, despite Ron Rivera, he is slowly becoming on my list of coaches, which sucks because I like Riverboat Ron. But Sam Howell looked decent this time, but I mean, it'll be Jekyll and Hyde next week. The defense looked good, pretty good, considering they got 38 points scored on them, and now the defense is gone completely, which we all kind of figured for the most part. At least one, if not both of them, were going to leave too. So, I mean, Philly, as far as Philly's concerned, yes, it was at FedEx, UPS, whatever stadium it is, but Philly still only beat Washington barely. So, maybe Philly kind of had a downer of a week. Luckily, San Fran, also had their streak going right now, which is weird. But I mean, Philly's the number 1 seed, and they're now 2 games up, I think, on the number 1 seed, or 1 game. I can't remember.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah.
This is the second time that they barely beat Washington, because last time they played, they went into overtime. So either Washington has Philadelphia's number, or Philadelphia just ain't looking great. I mean, they're looking great, but they're not looking great at the same time.
Right.
Chase Young, first of all, the 49ers have I think that they own multiple banks because they are just sitting on money. Now, granted, they get Chase Young in his last year, so whether they re-sign him or not at the end of the season, I think they will, because they tend to find money laying around somewhere. And having Brock Purdy on that rookie deal makes it to where you can pay other players. And then did the Bears bear themselves again by trading a second-round pick, almost probably a first-round pick, when they traded for Montez Sweat? Remember, they did the same thing last year when they traded for Chase Claypool. Ended up being pick 32 overall, but they still traded a high-end second-round pick for a big-name player. Well, I find it intriguing that Montez Sweat went for a second and Chase Young only went for a third. I'm an Ohio State guy. I would have preferred Chase Young, but the Bears, I would say the Bears have to sign Montez Sweat to a long-term contract. I know that
I'll let Corey talk a little about those trades. I'm looking up SpotTrack to see what San Francisco's cap space is right now, because I'm pretty sure they're over the cap at this moment, which goes into why it was a third for Chase as opposed to a second for Sweat. Part of it, it's like a 9-game rental. I don't think they're going to be able to re-sign him. I think he's going to hit free agency and he's going to get a boatload of money from somebody.
Yeah, but with the 49ers in doing that, they get that compensatory pick now. If Chase Young signs for a big contract, they will get a third round pick. It'll just be at the end of the draft. But that doesn't make any sense for Washington to say, since you're not going to re-sign him to a long-term deal, you can have him for a third. I don't know what other offers were out there for Chase Young, but Corey, go ahead.
You're fine. Like, I'll let Chicago King go off here in a little bit, because I think Montez Sweat is better than Young. And I think he's worth a second round pick. You know what you're getting with him. I mean, he's kind of been hurt a little bit, but not as much as Chase Young has. And I think he is huge for the Bears. And a second's fine. The difference is Chase Claypool was trash. I don't know what the hell that was. But Montez Sweat is awesome. So I think it was a great trade for Chicago. Aaron, talk about your Bears.
I mean, I'm going to try not to take up too much time here with this. Why these are completely different. Chase Claypool is a wide receiver. This guy's a defensive end. Chase Claypool had to come in and learn the whole system, whereas
Which he didn't.
Montrez, right? He didn't even try to. Whereas Montez Sweat has to come in and get past the offensive lineman in front of him and hit the quarterback, which he has 6.5 sacks. The Bears' entire defensive line for the entire year has 6.5 sacks. So he matches our entire defensive line's numbers already. I took a screenshot earlier of where he ranks on all of our defensive statistics. Sacks, 6.5, first. Pressures, 27, first. 4 QB hits, tied for first. 10.6% pass rush win rate, first. PFF grade is 76.8, which would also be first. So we trade a second-round pick for a defensive end that we needed. The Bears needed pass rush. They went out and got a pass rush. He's 27 years old. They're already working on a contract. Ryan Poles talked today. There's a hell of a lot going on at Hallis Hall. They fired another coach today, and our head coach is still talking about how great our atmosphere is, or our I don't know. It's
the culture.
The culture. I mean, I could do a daily show on the Chicago Bears and have something to talk about every day with this team, because that's how much of a dumpster fire they are. But I am happy that we made a trade for Montez Sweat. I do believe there are some games on the back end of the schedule we might be able to win to make that pick look a little bit lower. I don't think it's going to be at the top of the second round. I mean, we play the Panthers and we play the Vikings and we play the Cardinals. So we've got some games we might be able to win at the back end of the schedule to make that pick look a little better. Washington kind of looks like they're tanking. It only seems like it may be a amount of time before Ron Rivera has shown the door, much like Josh McDaniels was late Tuesday night. And I kind of want to see them under Eric Bieniemy just to see what he looks like in that role, if he's ever to ever get a chance to do that. I don't know. Maybe, Washington's trading off pieces and we see something different. But that's all I wanted to say about Sweat is a lot of the draft grade or the trade grades that I'm seeing right away are like C's and D's. And I'm like, you guys have said all year how much the Bears need pass rush. Then they go get a pass rusher and you're like, what are the Bears doing? Like, I don't it's baffling to me. I don't know. But we'll move on.
Real quick, I just want to get my last piece in here, because for me, when we look at Montez Sweat's stats, and we could do this with any of Washington's defensive linemen, it's almost the Jalen Carter effect, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jalen Carter's a really great defensive tackle, but what would he look like in Chicago? Mm-hmm. You have Daron Payne, you had Chase Young, you had Jonathan Allen. That defensive line was stacked. Yeah. So you're going to have, and I wouldn't say that his stats are inflated or anything like that, but you're not going to be able to guard all of those, or to block all of those defensive linemen all the time. Now, I think that Montez Sweat is a clear upgrade for that Bears defensive line. But unless the Bears get him under a long-term contract, it's not a great look for Chicago. They need to get a long-term contract. Because the franchise tag is not anything that they should be playing with Montez Sweat, or else that is potentially a failed trade.
Well, they're already working on a long-term contract. The GM said that today. The issue with franchise tagging him is Jalen Johnson requested a trade, and the Bears were like, "You can request one." Like Ryan Poles said today, if I traded him, I wanted a first or second round pick, like a high second. I'm not trading him away for anything less than that. So nobody traded for him. And now Jalen Johnson's all pissed off. He came out today and said he thinks he's the best corner in the league. And I'm like, I love you, Jalen, but sometimes you got to take a look in the mirror, bro, and realize you're good, but you are definitely not the best. Anyway. I don't know. We'll move on, though. Probably. I don't know who this is in the chat. They said probably all high school wrestlers. I don't know what that means.
He's saying that the Commanders' defensive line is probably all high school wrestlers. He's actively recruiting for wrestlers right now. I know Brian. He's recruiting.
Okay, I was just confused by what he said. We'll move on though. Sunday, 4:25, Cincinnati Bengals traveled to San Francisco and beat the 49ers 31-17. Myself and Kyle had Cincinnati covering the 5.5-point spread. This spread dropped 2 points before kickoff, so they were only 3.5 points.
Yeah.
When it kicked off. Corey, you rode with the Niners. You thought they'd get back on track. Surprisingly, Brock Purdy did play. I had already pulled him out of my fantasy lineup, so that was fun for me when I had to start Jimmy Garoppolo. But that's neither here nor there. The Cincinnati Bengals not only cover the 5.5, they go in there and they win the game, and in a dominating fashion. Looks like Joe Shiesty's back, boys. I think he showed up a little bit late in the season, fashionably late. That's kind of what Joe Burrow ends up doing year in and year out. But this team's getting hot, and that division is better be looking out, especially with Deshaun Watson taking a month off to heal off whatever he's got.
And they're still doing good.
I mean, yeah, they got a great defense, probably the best in the league, but you got to have them both. You know what I mean? Kyle, tell me about this game, brother.
I picked Cincinnati plus 5.5 because I thought Sam Darnold was starting this game. When I saw that Brock Purdy was cleared from concussion, which has never happened under the new protocols, I was very surprised to see that. I would not have taken Cincinnati money line, probably even with Sam Darnold under center, because San Francisco is still a good team. I don't know what's going on with them right now. I think that when you have to rely on Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy, he was a 7th round pick for a reason. I think that he's just not able to clutch up. Deebo Samuel's out, which gives him less all-star targets or Pro Bowl or whatever you want to call them. You're taking the talent away from Brock Purdy, and it's almost like taking the infinity rings out of Thanos' gauntlet. The more you take away, the less powerful it is. So I don't know. CMC is keeping that offense rolling, because without him, this wouldn't have even been 31-17.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm really surprised that George Kittle hasn't had incredible stats since Deebo going out. I mean, I thought you'd find somewhere to go. I mean, Ayuk was looking really good early, and CMC, of course, and then Kittle. But you lose one guy, and this offense looks dead, and I love Kyle Shanahan's offense. Corey, tell me what you thought of this one.
It says that Brock Purdy had 365 yards. I did not see that. I don't know where that was at, but it's amazing when all of a sudden now we just see this defense just like the Bengals did whatever they wanted with them.
Yeah,
at home at Levi Stadium.
Right.
Like it was. I still don't think Cincinnati's better than San Francisco, but San Francisco's now lost 3 in a row. So
yeah.
I mean that is more surprising than Cincinnati putting it on them, in my opinion. I don't know what's going on in San Francisco. It can't just be that Debo's out and now the offense is just like it just can't be. Ayuk's the number one anyway. So got a bye week. Maybe they fix some stuff, figured out. Maybe Brock Purdy actually gets over his concussion, and then I don't know. They have to get back on the winning track. They're too good.
Since Corey brought it up, Brock Purdy did have 365 yards passing, which I didn't even see that. He completed passes to, wait for it, 4 different targets. So of that 365 yards, Kittle, Ayuk, McCaffrey, and Ray McLeod are the only ones who caught a pass, it looks like, which is absolutely wild. Kittle went for 149, Ayuk for 109, McCaffrey for 64, and Ray for 43. So, yeah.
That's crazy. They were using Juwan Jennings quite a bit last year as like almost a safety valve, extra guy that you had to account for. And it seems like this year they haven't viewed him in the same way. Or I don't know if he's not getting open or.
Well, to be fair, there was a few times that Juwan Jennings was throwing the ball and either it was a bad throw or he caught it and it was a flag. So they were trying to get him in. It just the shit end of the stick, basically.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on. The shocker of the week, Sunday at 4:25, the Kansas City Chiefs traveled to Denver, and they got beat by the Broncos. We all had Kansas City covering. I believe I mentioned something about just throwing this in here because I wanted one in that time slot and being a divisional game. Well, Jordan back in the day had a flu game and went absolutely off. Mahomes does not have the same superpowers that Michael Jordan had. He looked human, I guess. And Denver actually, I don't know if you guys saw this story. They played Taylor Swift as as time was, I think, right after the game or as time was rolling out. They kind of trolled Kansas City a little bit, playing "Shake It Off" by Taylor Swift. I have no idea what happened in this game. Can someone enlighten me, Kyle, please?
My guess, because I did watch a little bit of this game, but my guess is Taylor Swift wasn't there. Honestly, Kelsey had 58 yards. When Taylor Swift's there, he's averaging over 100 yards per game.
Trouble in paradise.
I mean, I think Kansas City had won 17 in a row or 16 in a row against Denver, going back to the Peyton Manning days. So you knew that was going to end at some point. I just didn't think it was going to end like this. I think that this win for Denver, one, it's a fluke. Two, I think Denver's shown that if you can shut down Travis Kelce, you can shut down that Kansas City offense. And three, this win for Denver is the reason why Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Justin Simmons, Surtain, why these guys didn't get traded at the deadline. It gave them a false sense of hope to say, hey, we got it, when really, Denver, you don't. It's Kansas City, they're not a top 3 team in the AFC right now. It's going to be tough for them to go and travel in the playoffs and in games. I don't foresee them. They didn't make a move at the deadline to add a big wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins.
They said they were trying. I think it was them that had rumors that they were trying to make a deal with. Mooney was one of the names they put out, but the others were Mike Evans, and there was another big name that they were trying to get that it just didn't come to fruition. But Mike Evans was the big one where I was like, boy, if they'd have got Mike Evans, that would have been look out.
And I think Mike Evans is in the last year of his deal too. So I'm wondering if they were offering a 4th or 5th round pick, and Tampa Bay either said, we're going to re-sign him because we have money next year, or we know he's going to sign for a bigger contract and we'll get a 3rd round pick for him.
We'll take our comp. Yeah,
exactly. So I don't know. I mean, they didn't address the wide receiver position unless we see some vets get cut or we see one of these wide receivers in Kansas City just wake up, I guess. It's going to be tough for Kansas City come playoff time.
Well, if I'd have told you that the Denver Broncos would beat the Kansas City Chiefs by 15, with Russell Wilson going for 12 for 19 and 114 yards. So clearly the defense was giving them a very short field. I didn't watch this game really, but their defense, we kind of talked about this before, their defense was being the Achilles heel of them, but they're also because they were on the field 45 minutes a game. They switched that clearly in this game, or else at least got an interception or something. But I think it was a fluke game. Denver's not good. Kansas City is still good. I was kind of behind on my podcast last week, and it was amazing how many people that were saying Kansas City is just the best team in the league. I don't believe that, but they're better than the Denver Broncos. That was a fluke.
Yeah, it's just crazy to see a team in Denver that gave up 70 points a couple of weeks ago hold Kansas City to – they didn't even score a touchdown. I think all those points were kicks. So it's like I don't know, man. It's just it's a crazy NFL this year, man. We'll move on to our final game of the week from last week. Sunday Night Football. The Chicago Bears travel to the LA Chargers. They lose this game 13-30. I, for some dumb reason, believed in the Bears. You both correctly chose the Chargers. The Bears on offense didn't look awful, I guess. Right out of the gate, they throw for 40 yards. I was like, okay, nice. Let's take some shots down the field. They followed that up with a reverse to their punt returner, run right into Khalil Mack. So it's just what are you doing? Like, if something works, try it. Try to do more of that. And if it doesn't work, don't do that. But I wasn't completely pissed at the offense. But the defense was god awful after putting together a solid couple of weeks. They were like we said last week. This was the rated 5th against the run. They were 29th against the pass, but they had done some decent things, obviously against worse teams. But Justin Herbert literally stood back, and this is another reason why we traded for Sweat. Justin Herbert just stood back there all day. He wasn't even doing like deep shot plays or anything. He was checking down to Eckler most of the game, and Eckler was just like, I'm going to break 3 or 4 tackles, a lot like Aaron Jones did week 1, Kyle. You saw it. I mean, it's the defense. It's awful. We have a defensive-minded head coach, and our GM comes out today and gives him another resounding – he said, that's my guy. He's a leader of men, blah, blah, blah. And I swear to God, if they keep him around, I'm going to – you all might see my head explode. Anyway, I'm not going to take up a ton of time on this because I would just be wasting my breath with this team, with this defense. I like the players they have. The scheme is awful. How does Edmonds come in, who was damn near an all-pro at Buffalo every year? He comes in and now he can't play. TJ Edwards just went to the Super Bowl. He comes in, now he can't play. Andrew Billings has graded out well. Shout out to him. He's the one who got my tickets a couple of weeks ago, and I got his jersey. It came in. So I'm happy with that. But other than that, this team's a mess. And we were down both of our safeties. Jaquan Brisker was out with an illness, and then it came out Monday. Oh, yeah, he's back in concussion protocol. We thought he was just sick.
Whoops.
What? How?
So I will,
or Corey, go ahead.
I will say this: you held the team to 54 rushing yards, and you held Eckler 15 rushes for 29 yards. That's still pretty good. The only problem is Justin Herbert just passed all over your shit. That was just, I mean, the time of possession. I was looking back. I was
defense, man. Everything underneath is open.
But like I was looking back and I was like, because I watched the game, but I was like, wait a minute. Surely the Chargers had the ball for like 40, 45 minutes. No, it was 31 to 29 minutes. That was crazy. So it's just not your year, man. The Chargers still need to fire Brandon Staley. That's all I got.
Yeah. And then that's the thing for the season for the Bears. They have a good run defense. They just don't have a good pass defense. And when you're playing against a Chargers team who's been missing Austin Eckler, which, I mean, I don't believe that the Chargers offensive stats so far this year really are accurate because they don't have Mike Williams. They've been missing Austin Eckler, but the Chargers aren't a great rushing team so far this season. The stats show that they were a better passing team than rushing. So on paper, you knew Justin Herbert was going to have a big game. I didn't really think it would come in the form of Austin Eckler catching a bunch of screen passes and breaking 1,300 tackles and leading the Chargers in receiving. Shout out to whoever it was that fumbled the ball late. It was either Herbert or Eckler. Locked me a W in my home league because the guy I was playing had Herbert and Eckler. Wow. And things got real tight there at the end. So I thought for sure I was going to lose. He fumbled and then I don't think he touched the ball from there. And I think, did they pull Herbert out too? I don't remember if they did.
Yeah, it came down because I had somebody had Keenan Allen against me. And if Keenan Allen would have caught more ball,
yeah,
lost.
Wow.
So,
they were going to him early.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things is, a lot of people are watching these games down to the final ticks, and the game may be out of hand, but you're like, please don't throw it to this third string wide receiver. You got a lot of money on this.
Pissed I was that I had to watch the freaking Bears at the Chargers on Sunday night instead of sleep because I had like 4 things riding on it. It was such bullshit.
Do you know how pissed I am to know that in week 10, the Raiders and the Jets are still playing Sunday night and they could have flexed it out?
Well, I'm definitely going to sleep on that one. I ain't got anybody on those teams. So
you'll get some slips. You'll get some slips.
Well, Collinsworth is coming under heat with some of his comments. It was very clear that I don't know if the Bears staff slipped this to them or what, but it's become very clear that they want Tyson Bagent to be the guy or a guy like Tyson Bagent. They don't.
Yeah.
they are backdoor whispering that they don't want Justin Fields. They don't like how he fits their scheme, this and that, and it's absolute horseshit. It is. Justin Fields has the ability to be the best quarterback the Chicago Bears have ever had, and they refuse to just let him play his game. It's the same thing that Nagy did. Now, Trubisky may have never worked out, but they tried to fit a square peg in a round hole, and they just jammed it and jammed it and jammed it and couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. It sounds like they're doing the same thing here. And Collinsworth had a comment that they're going to have Justin Fields watch tape of Tyson Bagent so he can learn to play more like him. What the fuck is that? So Justin Fields, who's been an All-American his entire life, who was a top 2 prospect coming out of high school,
Be like
Georgia
Shepherdsville
and
before,
Ohio
yeah.
State, should have been a top 10 draft pick until the epilepsy crap came out on draft night. He's going to watch an undrafted free agent for how. Now, I will say Bagent does some things better than Justin does. Like, he gets rid of the ball really quick. He scans the field really quick. He does all these things because he doesn't have the athletic ability that Justin Fields has. But for Collinsworth to say stuff like that is just and I don't like Collinsworth anyway, going back to years and years. The only time I ever saw the Bears on Sunday night is when they played your Packers, Kyle, and I would have to listen to him deep throat Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre and everybody else like it was his job. So I haven't liked this guy for years. But I wanted to get that out before we move on. That comment was ridiculous, Collinsworth.
What do you really think about him?
I just said it. We'll move on to this week's slate of games, and we got some fun ones, fellas. When I was looking at this, like usually when I'm looking at the week slate of games, it's tough for me to pick 6 because there's not great matchups always, or at least it doesn't look like it on paper. But this week's got some good freaking games. The first one's not great. It's the big spread of the week. Arizona at Cleveland. It's an 8-point spread, and they saved me from picking the Bears this week because that was a 7-point spread, which is now 7.5. Thankfully, they are still at 8. And Arizona, we're going to see Clayton Tune. And Cleveland, we don't know if we're going to see Deshaun Watson or not. But give me Arizona to cover +8. I know Cleveland has a great defense and all that, but this team fights. I mean, we saw this. The only win they have is against Dallas. So it's not that they don't have talent. And, Kyle, I don't have to have them win the game for me to win this bet. So, Arizona +8 in the big spread of the week this week. Kyle, tell me what's up.
That's very fair. Yeah, so I looked at this, and knowing that Kyler Murray's not playing and Clayton Tune is getting his first start, I guarantee you that Cleveland Browns defense is just absolutely licking their chops. They get a play against a rookie quarterback. Even if they got a play against Kyler Murray, who's coming back from an ACL in his first game, they probably would have been licking their chops.
I saw Justin Fields in his first start against Cleveland.
Kyler Murray has been a full participant at practice, I think, all of last week. He hasn't really been limited. The Cardinals are smart not to bring him back and make his first game be against that Cleveland Browns defense. Now, I haven't looked at the stats or anything like that to see what kind of defense Arizona has and see what their rushing defense looks like, because no matter who's under center for the Browns, you can't trust their passing offense right now. With that being said, I really like Cleveland's defense in this one against a rookie quarterback. I'm going to take Cleveland -8.
Good point. Yeah, I saw Justin Fields' first start against Cleveland. I think he got sacked 9 times in that game. So I'll probably lose this one, but oh well. Corey.
When I seen the spread, I was like, all right, big spread of the week. All right, Cleveland -18. That sounds about right. No, it's only -8. This is insane. Arizona was playing with Josh Dobbs, who was a backup 15 times already, and now they're going to a backup. Cleveland's defense might outscore Arizona. I think Cleveland wins this game by like 20. Arizona, I know they've been fighting, but they don't have Connor. They're not going to have Murray. They just lost the one quarterback that's been playing the entire season for them. So, No, I mean Marcus
They
Brown
didn't-
ain't gonna do nothing. Like
They didn't lose him. They gave him away.
Well, that's okay, but he's not playing for there anymore. So like it's no Cleveland by a lot.
Touche.
Not only do they give him
over-under
away,
in this game, Corey.
not only did they give him away, but they could have used him this week leading up to Cleveland and say, Josh Dobbs, give us the insight on this team we're about to play, because they traded for Josh Dobbs from the Cleveland Browns this offseason.
Yeah. As far as the over under, I'm probably gonna go under, even though it's gross. That would be 20, maybe 19 to 18, or sort of 20 to 17. So I mean, yeah, I think under. Cleveland gets a lot of points early, and they just kind of run the ball. I mean,
have you guys heard of all the primetime unders hitting this week or this year?
Yeah,
I might bring it up later. The next game is our 12-ounce Core Route podcast nail biter of the week. Sunday at 9:30 a.m.
It's in your German accent.
9. That's about all I got. I don't know.
Is that
The Miami Dolphins? No, that's more.
It does start at 9. Yeah, you're right.
I don't know. I'm not very good with the German accent. Miami at quote unquote Kansas City. This is in Germany. Kansas City is 2-point favorites. The over under in this game is 51. Money line for Miami is plus 120. For Kansas City is minus 142. Kyle, tell me about this game.
I just need to know, do we have the flight schedules for Miami and Kansas City? I need to know if anybody's left yet.
Corey, look at that. We'll just let Corey start it off.
Didn't do okay, I'll go, I guess, since you all didn't do your research. Miami left Monday. Kansas City's not leaving until I think tomorrow or either today or tomorrow. And they're only going to have one practice in Germany. So this is that one game that we just had all over again.
And does Taylor Swift, does she have a ticket for Germany right now?
Gonna go ahead and say she's not making the trip to Germany, probably.
Okay. All right. Regardless of when these teams are leaving and whether Taylor Swift is going or not, I'm taking Miami -2. +2. Thank you. I think Miami is going to win the game. I think that their offense is more well-rounded than Kansas City's. But I would say that Kansas City probably has a better defense. But you want to shut down Tyreek or Waddle or, this guy or that guy. They've got another guy that they can give the ball to. In Kansas City, it's Pacheco or Kelsey. Pick your poison, right? I don't know how Mahomes is going to be feeling if he had a flu game last week and now he has to travel for X amount of hours via flight to go and play in this game. So, yeah, give me Miami +2.
That's true. Corey, what's up, man?
Yeah, I think Miami wins this outright. Even if they did get there earlier, I think that does help. I think it matters. Let's hope that Mahomes doesn't have anything worse like I do. He might not be allowed in Germany. So, but I think Miami
just won't test him.
That's true. I think Miami. I think they win outright. I cannot wait to put money on this game. I think Miami looks good. This is their we're playing a good team. Let's see if they can beat them game. So, and then over under hit that over.
That's true. Miami has struggled when they played the great teams, but I think we're all in unison here. I'm going to take Miami +2 as well. I would probably take the Miami money line. I think they win this game outright. I think the travel is a big deal. We've already seen it a couple of times this year in the London games. I believe this is the first time in many years or has the NFL ever been to Germany? Is this the first in a long time? So
I think it's the first time.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it'd be really cool to see them. Good for the Germans. And
they played. I think they played there last year.
Did they?
In November? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who played, but
you can just edit that out whenever you post this podcast.
Google's telling me Tampa Bay defeated the Seahawks 21-16. So free plug for Google. I know that they need us to plug them. Right. So thanks Google for the info.
We'll move on. Our next game is Thursday Night Football. The Tennessee Titans travel to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a 3-point home favorite. The over-under is 36. Remember, those primetime unders have been hitting. So they're just going to make this one super low. The money line for Tennessee is plus 130, for Pittsburgh minus 155. Will Levis showed up last week, threw for 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. You heard it here first. We had Levis as our second favorite quarterback in the draft, and it looks like it, at least early. At least I did. I don't know what you had, Kyle, but this was my, because I'm a Kentucky guy. I got my Levis jersey on today just for this game. My son plays for the Titans in middle school, so we watched every minute of that game last week. The Titans wore their old school Oilers jerseys, and Levis going for his second start. They did say that Kenny Pickett is good to go. I did read that earlier today or maybe yesterday. But I think Tennessee travels to Pittsburgh and beats the team outright. Give me Tennessee plus 3. I'm riding with Will Levis, and I don't know about – hell, I might go the over too. I mean, Levis put up 28 points by himself last week. You know, he's got a connection with Hopkins. I knew a guy who went to the game, and he told me when they were doing the starting lineup, he was like, I didn't even know Hopkins played for the Titans, because they haven't used him all year.
Yeah.
And Levis is just like, I'll find him. Kyle, tell me about this one, brother.
So Will Levis last week completed 19 of 29 passes for 4 touchdowns. He threw, or I don't know how many times he actually threw to DeAndre Hopkins, but DeAndre Hopkins caught
a lot.
4. He caught 4 of them. He caught 4. He caught 3 touchdowns. He had 4.
Oh, I thought you were talking about touchdowns.
No, he had 4 receptions, 3 touchdowns. I'm not exactly sure. I can't think off the top of my head who Pittsburgh played this past week.
They played. Go ahead. Sorry.
Was it Jacksonville?
Yeah, Jacksonville.
They did, and they lost to Jacksonville. That's right. Jacksonville beat them by 10, I think, or 14. Was it 17-7, something like that?
They doubled them up. Double them up.
Okay. So yeah, for me, it's an uncertainty at quarterbacks for both teams. Because I will say that Will Levis is still an unknown. Yes, he did have 4 passing touchdowns, but he's only going into his second game as a starter. The Steelers said that Pickett is good to go, but will he last the full game? That's another question. Tennessee is one of those teams who I think if they would have lost to Atlanta would have been sellers at the deadline. I think that we would have seen Derrick Henry and D-Hop both gone, and that there were people trying to get both of those players. However, the Tennessee Titans do not have to win this game for me to get this pick right. 3 points is not a huge spread, so I don't see them losing by 1 or 2 points. I am taking Tennessee because I do think that they have a shot at winning this game against Pittsburgh, and I think that there's a lot of the energy is high with Will Levis under center after what he did last week. So give me Tennessee plus 3.
Go ahead, Corey.
All right. Look, Will Levis, I'm so happy for him. I hope he's the quarterback for 10 years. But the Steelers defense, the Falcons is not the Steelers. The Steelers defense is awesome. And I think the offense is better than the Falcons offense. I actually picked this game when it was Pitt -4, and I'm fine with that. I'm taking Pitt to win this and win by like 6. It's at Pitt. I think they're just a way better team than the Falcons were, and we've seen Tennessee just kind of suck this year. I'm hoping Levis does awesome. I really am, and I hope he's the quarterback for another 10 years. D-Hop looked great. But I see Derrick Henry not doing much against this D-line, so I'm going to take Pittsburgh and points.
Can we take a second before we move on to the next game, because this is going to be the only chance that we have to talk about the green weenie entering the game against the Titans, and that is Taylor Heinicke. And not only that, but he was announced as the starter this week for the Falcons too. So that our guy, the green weenie, as I like to call him, I don't really know what else we call him. What was the green what?
Green lizard.
Green lizard.
The green lizard. There we go. He's starting this week for Atlanta. So I'm going to believe that the three of us spoke that into existence.
Oh yeah,
Nikki, you're welcome. The folks here at the 12-ounce Curl Route podcast got your back.
Yeah, if you want to put our podcast, with a QR code or something in your stadium somewhere.
Yeah, sure. It'd be awesome.
Just get in touch with Kyle, and he'll hook you up with all that
We
stuff.
could put a lizard somewhere behind it, maybe a big green weenie somewhere else.
Put a big green weenie right here, just dangling.
Dangling. We'll move on. Sunday at 1:00, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to Houston to take on the Texans. The Texans are 2.5-point home favorites. The over/under is 40. The money line for Tampa Bay is plus 124. For Houston is minus 148. The Houston Texans lost to the Carolina Panthers last week, and the Bears no longer have the number 1 overall pick. What the hell, Houston? I know CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are boys. They're friends. They go to ball games together and stuff. But come on, I was planning on you guys to keep that number 1 pick alive for the Bears, and you chose not to. With all that being said, I'm going Houston in this game at home. I like CJ Stroud. I like their defense. I like their coaching staff, and I don't know. I like some things on Tampa, but I like everything with Houston. Corey's Houston Texans. If you want to take it from here, Corey, go ahead.
Yeah, it seems like every time I bet on the Texans, they lose. So it's my fault that they're losing. I'm literally sucking the soul out of them. Tampa showed me some things last week. I know they're kind of hurt and stuff, but they had a chance, a real shot last week. So plus 2.5 was plus 2.5. Plus 2.5. I'm going to take the Buccaneers so that the Houston Texans win. Bucks.
So you're sacrificing the 6-pack challenge.
I got to.
For his Houston Texans.
I got faith in my other team. You know,
for his Houston Texans. For me, it comes down to looking at honestly the standings, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are sitting at 3-4, versus the 3-4 Houston Texans. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a more clear path to the playoffs than the Houston Texans. Houston, it would be very hard pressed to make it as a wild card, whereas Tampa Bay is 1 game back on Atlanta and leading the NFC South. I watched Thursday Night Football last week. Tampa Bay did not look overly great against Buffalo. They got Chris Godwin very heavily involved. And I would say that you probably could have called some pass interference in that game on that Hail Mary too. Yeah. However, you know, the score makes it look closer than it really was. Gabe Davis was just absolutely eating in that game. Stephon Diggs, I don't think did really anything. They didn't need him to do anything. Houston lost to Carolina, and Eddie Pinheiro hit 3 field goals consecutively. Actually,
Bear, Eddie
did he? Did he make the first one, or was the first one a miss? And then anyway, he had 3 attempts at it, and the ref called the guy that kept jumping off for a personal unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for continuously jumping across the line. I wouldn't say that Tampa Bay is the better team. I think both of these teams are pretty evenly matched. But I'm going to go with Tampa Bay plus 2.5. I like their weapons a little bit more. I think that their quarterback is more seasoned, more polished. And I think CJ Stroud is finally coming down from that high he had the first few games of the year, and he's leveling out a little bit. So give me Tampa plus 2.5.
Do you guys still think CJ Stroud brings home Offensive Rookie of the Year this year, or is there anyone else in contention?
I think Jordan Addison's in contention now.
Oh yeah, he stepped up big time last.
He's got, I think,
I think it's going to be hard for Jordan Addison though if with Kirk Cousins going down. I think
for him.
Yeah.
Should have been Bijan, but Atlanta doesn't know how to use the weapon.
It depends on how Detroit moves forward from here. Jahmyr Gibbs had a really big. Yeah.
I mean, he went off. They gave him, I don't know how many times he touched the ball, but Gibbs just lost his shit. I mean, he looked great in that game.
I really like the uniforms that the Lions.
Those helmets were so amazing.
So cool.
Oh, yeah, those were so awesome.
Really cool. We'll move on to our next game. Huge matchup. America's game of the week. Sunday at 4:25. Dallas at Philly. Philly is a 3.5-point home favorite. The over/under is 46. Money line for Dallas is plus 136. For Philly is minus 162. one of the best rivalries in the NFL is this game right here. I go to work with several Cowboys fans and several Eagles fans. They have not spoke to each other all week. Usually they are ribbing each other and giving each other crap, but this week they are not even speaking. So that shows you what this rivalry is. And I don't know who I'm going to pick, so I'm going to pass to you guys to talk me into one way or the other. Corey, I'm passing to you first.
All right. It must be just me and the Texas teams because every time I pick Dallas, they lose. But if we're just going off last week, Dallas looked great. Look what happens when you give City Ball the Lamb. Or City Ball the Lamb. City Lamb the ball.
You got to pull that shit, Kyle.
I mean, look and see what happens. He lost his shit too and looked amazing. He looked like the number one receiver in the league. And it's crazy when you give him the ball. What happens? Oh, I don't know. So with Philly looking like they did, Dallas doesn't have to win the game for me to win the pick. So I'm taking Dallas plus 3.5. That seems a little high to me. But
well, I looked these up yesterday.
No. It's fine. I'm just that's more for me. Woohoo!
When I either play basketball like in person or I play on video games, my mantra is: you live by the 3, you die by the 3. I put myself 3-point shooters everywhere. I'm not a great 3-point shooter, but I still throw them up. And most of the time I die by the 3. Dallas last week said, we live by the Dak, we die by the Dak. And I think that they're going to continue to say that throughout this season, that they have to put the ball in Dak Prescott's hand to win games. Because when they don't do that, they aren't going to win. So they have to let Dak win or lose these games. Tony Pollard is not running the ball the way that Tony Pollard was supposed to run this ball. You can only win so many games from your defense. A.J. Brown's looking like an absolute dog for Philadelphia. 3 touchdowns this past week. I think Devontae Smith got in on the fun. Julio Jones had a touchdown.
Yeah.
The Crusher won his matchup this week. He's now got 2 wins on the season. He was also the high scorer of the week in the Brad Johnson Daily Football Roundup, Fantasy Football Invitational. I'm going to snip that. I'm going to post a picture of the Crusher on it because he killed it this week, running with Hurts, Goddard, and Devonta Smith in his lineup. And he has to that helps too. However, live by the 3, die by the 3. I'm living with Dak this week. I'm probably dying with Dak this week. But give me Dallas plus 3.5.
Oof, man. So you guys are both rolling with Dallas. Dallas is so confusing to me. Because they can go literally from looking like the best team in the NFL one week to losing to the Arizona Cardinals the next. And I can't figure them out. So, Philly at home. It's probably going to be a little chill in the air, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I think they're going to run the ball really well. I love what A.J. Brown's been doing. It's hard for me to pick against Philly. So give me Philly at home, minus 3.5. I think the defense steps up, and without having Diggs on Dallas's defense, I'm not sure who's stopping A.J. Brown, if anybody even can.
Well, so Diggs wouldn't be able to either, but yeah.
That's true. I mean, he'd get a pick or two, which that's just what he does.
You're going to put Micah Parsons out there.
Yeah, he can cover.
He probably – I mean, he'd give it a hell of a shot. That's a bad man. Our final game of the 6-pack challenge, another great game, I think. Sunday Night Football, Buffalo traveling to Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a 2.5-point home favorite. The over-under is 48.5. The money line for Buffalo is plus 120. For Cincinnati is minus 142. Like I said earlier, I'm going to go ahead and make my pick because I don't want you guys to talk me out of it or make me second guess it. Cincinnati is starting to roll. Joe Burrow is back. He is getting the ball out. He is doing what needs to be done for his team to win, and they're pushing for the playoffs. So give me Cincinnati at home. They might only win this game by like a field goal, but a field goal covers it. Give me Cincinnati. Go ahead, Corey.
This was the game of the year last year until it wasn't. Unfortunately, we had something really awful happen last year. I think this game it's not going to live up to the hype as much per se, but it's going to be a great game. I still have faith in Buffalo. I still haven't picked to win the Super Bowl. I think they can do it. I love that I'm getting plus 2.5 at this. I think the over is going to get hammered, as we've seen kind of like what the Bengals did with their wide receivers. Higgins did not get traded. I thought that was kind of weird that was even being talked about. And then we know what Buffalo can do. So give me Buffalo plus 2.5.
Go ahead, Kyle.
This one was really tough.
Yeah.
And I did not do a lot of research before we got on here tonight to really. I'm picking with my gut and my heart on a lot of these tonight, and generally that's when I go 0-6. So be prepared for whoever I pick here to probably not either cover or not. Just be prepared for this to be an 0-6 week. When I look at both of these teams, not only this past week but the past few weeks, Cincinnati stands out a little bit more to me than Buffalo does. Granted, Cincinnati's win against San Francisco doesn't look as great now that they've dropped 3 in a row, but Joe Burrow is back and he is playing really good football. Josh Allen, since losing Brian Daboll, has gone back to Josh Allen of his Wyoming days in his rookie season, and he's causing turnovers. And if you give too many opportunities to that Bengals offense to put this game away, they're going to put this game away. I can tell you right now that Cincinnati is going to be roaring on Sunday night.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that they did not get to play or watch the game played last year. Granted, they did meet in the playoffs and Cincinnati won. But I think that it's going to be prime time in Cincinnati, and those fans are going to be going absolutely nuts. Give me Cincinnati minus 2.5.
Yeah, those Bengals fans will probably be drunk by the time this game kicks off. I mean,
no doubt.
Yeah, that would definitely
so much beer and chili just everywhere.
They did say that they did say for the first time ever in Cincinnati they're going to try to stripe the stadium. So there's a picture floating around social media of the sections that need to wear orange and the sections that need to wear black for it to happen. So we'll see if they actually do stripe the stadium.
You see that a lot in college ball, but you don't see it a whole lot in the pros because, I mean, so many fan bases travel. Like when I went up to Chicago, there was Raiders fans, and I was like, dang, these dudes traveled to watch the Raiders? Like, and they were wild. Like, they painted their face and did all that crazy stuff. I think I did a pretty good job of picking our games this week. Honestly, a lot of these games, if I was actually betting real money, would be stay away games for me. But are there any other games from this week that you guys would want to cover? And then maybe we'll talk a little bit about the trade. We talked some about the trade deadline, but I'd like to cover what moves were made and what was given up for each one.
For me, Seattle at Baltimore will be interesting. I don't know that will be the one that's on TV or not. It's on Fox. But I think that game has the potential to be a good watch.
Yeah. And Seattle just traded for defensive tackle Leonard Williams this week to help bolster their rush defense. And with San Francisco starting to lose games, I'm not sure what their standings are, but I feel like Seattle's right there on them.
Seattle's number one in the West right now.
Oh, see, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. That was just off the top of my head.
They were my pick at the beginning of the year, by the way. I said, San Francisco can't stay healthy. Never in a million years 3 weeks ago would I have thought that Seattle would be sit number one in the West. That's absolutely wild to me.
Yeah, Geno Smith still ain't writing back. But you said they're playing Baltimore this week?
Yeah, at M&T Bank.
Oh, that'll be a hell of a game. Yeah, I might have to check in. Is that a 1 o'clock game? I might have to check
yes,
that
sir.
game out.
Fox.
Yeah. I paid for the Sunday ticket this year, so
there you go.
I'll be able to check that one out for sure. And Sunday Tickets got this really cool thing where they have you could put 4 games on at once. It's so awesome. There's never a
Also-
commercial break.
Also, I will say this: if the uniforms are done correctly, this could be an awesome color game.
Yeah, yeah. If the I love when the Ravens wear their black jerseys. They look so cool.
Yeah.
Kyle, is there any games that stick out to you this week?
I wouldn't say that it's necessarily games, but I do want to just point out, and I'll name a few teams, and you can tell me what they all have in common. But the Titans, the Vikings, the Falcons, potentially the Bears, the Rams, the Cardinals, the Colts. We'll throw them in there. The Raiders. Any guesses?
They're all playing backup quarterbacks this
They're
week.
all playing backup quarterbacks. Will Levis with the Titans. I didn't say the Steelers because they said Pickett should play, but potentially Trubisky, we might see him. The Vikings with Jaron Hall. The Falcons with Taylor Heineke, the big green weenie. The Bears potentially with Bajan again. I know Fields
Bajan is starting.
Yeah.
Is he starting again for the Saints?
Fields is ruled
Yeah.
out.
The diagnosis for Fields went doubtful the first week, doubtful the second week, and then this week, Monday, he came straight out and said he's out this week. Like,
okay.
I don't know if he had a setback. I don't know what the deal is.
We could see the backup for the Rams, which I couldn't tell you the name.
It
right
was
now.
Stetson Bennett, but I don't know who it is now.
Right.
Is it Wolford or something?
No, it's not Wolford. They were looking to bring in Wolford back, but Wolford got signed to somebody's active roster. Brett Ripon, I believe it is.
Whoa.
So Ripon.
Did you hear about Stetson Bennett though? They said he has an insane alcohol addiction. Like, can't stay sober. So
it's all those years at college, probably.
I mean, he was in college like Van Wilder, huh?
I should have a doctorate at least.
The Cardinals with and I didn't even throw the Browns in there either. The Browns could be playing PJ Walker, even though they said Deshaun Watson should start. You know, last time he started, he lasted 3 plays. The Colts with Gardner Minshew. The Giants potentially, they said Daniel Jones should play, but the Giants potentially with Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that's really his name.
It's not. It's like Frank. It's like Frank or something. But how do you have a backup quarterback that can't throw the ball forward?
You know.
Yeah. After I watched the Titans game, it clicked over to that one because it was going into overtime, and I watched that guy on like 3rd and 11 throw a swing pass out here to Barkley, and I was like, "What are they doing?"
Yeah. The Jets. I didn't mention the Jets, but the Jets still have Zach Wilson under center too. So, I mean, we saw a lot of quarterbacks drafted in the draft this past year, and now we're seeing why. Because they're not staying healthy for the full season, or they're not living up to what they thought they were getting, and they're moving on early. And I think one of the big reasons for that is because there's so much pressure on these coaches and GMs to succeed within the first 1 or 2 years that these guys are not getting time to build franchises. They're not getting time to get players in and build around those players and put something together. And it's a lot of the reason why you're seeing these bottom feeders continue to be bottom feeders. You're not seeing teams have the opportunity to get their franchise quarterback or to build an offense or a defensive line to protect a franchise quarterback before they get a new coach in or a new GM and they say, Justin Fields isn't working for us. Let's move on from him.
Right.
Or this guy's not doing it for us. Let's trade him for a 3rd round pick. And it's the never ending carousel of the NFL.
Yeah, in a perfect world, you'd be able to build your team a lot like the 49ers have, where you have your offensive line, you have your D line, you have your weapons, and then you can grab your quarterback and put him in there. But with quarterbacks,
they grabbed 3 quarterbacks, and they got lucky, potentially lucky with Mr. Irrelevant. That right. Brock Purdy was never supposed to be the starter.
Yeah, it was supposed to be Trey Lance. Yep. But yeah, that's another team that passed on Mahomes. You never hear anyone talk about them passing on him, but you hear about it with the Bears all the time. Anyway, I was gonna say something, and it's just if Will Levis plays well this week, have we seen the last of Ryan Tannehill? I know he's out for injury, and a lot of people say you shouldn't lose your job via injury, but Brady got his job through an injury.
I think we've seen the last of Tannehill, period. And I'm surprised. I think we've seen the last of Tannehill, period.
I'm going to finish what Corey said. I'm surprised Tannehill didn't get traded yesterday.
Yeah.
Even though he was nursing an injury, I thought that he would have been a better fit in Minnesota.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Than Josh Dobbs. I thought Jimmy Garoppolo would be a better fit in Minnesota than Josh Dobbs. These are two veteran quarterbacks who probably will only sniff the field again in case of an injury, or in the event of an injury. Or Atlanta. I figured Atlanta would go after somebody more.
Yeah, that was kind of
long term. Which we might see that in the offseason. Maybe the reason people aren't trading for Justin Fields is because they don't think he's going to be there. Or for Kyler, they know that he's going to be available in the offseason. Or they think he's going to be available in the offseason.
Yeah.
Well, I think Justin still has a year left on his rookie contract. So unless they just outright cut him.
Not that he's going to be available as a free agent, but I'm saying,
I got you.
If the Bears have the number 1 overall pick or the number 2 overall pick, and
draft
they show their hand, exactly. Yeah. I mean, look at what the Cardinals did. The Cardinals told everybody they were taking Kyler Murray, and then proceeded to get a 6th round pick for Josh Rosen. I think it was a 6th round pick. So
I don't know. It's yeah, I like the way. I mean, that was my biggest takeaway last week is how good Levis looked, and
it was a 2nd rounder. I'm sorry, they got a 2nd rounder from him. Josh Rosen was traded to the Dolphins. I couldn't have even told you where he went.
I thought he went to. I know he ended up in Tampa. I guess.
I think he went to.
He ended up in a lot of places.
Yeah, he went to the Dolphins and went to the beach once, and then they were like, "No, we're good."
Who knows? We might see him back in the NFL this year if injuries and stuff continue.
At this rate, shit, yeah.
He may be quarterbacking the Las Vegas Raiders by the end of the season.
Wolf.
I know I did see that I did see news today from the LA Rams that Matt Stafford is not going on IR. So I'm not sure what he hurt, but he is not.
It's Stafford. He's always hurt.
Right. But it was serious enough for him to. I don't think he finished the game last week. I mean, Dallas bullied that team.
He got the thumb injury. And then they ran a trick play where Matthew Stafford caught a very low thrown ball and looked like a wide receiver when he did it with his injured thumb. And so I'm not sure why they did that. But he did. I think he played for a little bit and then hit the thumb again on somebody's helmet and finally left the game.
That'll do it. But we started talking about some of the trades. I went ahead and pulled up NFL.com to get all the trade compensation and everything. We talked about Kevin Byard last week because he was traded early to the Eagles, and then the Titans got a safety, a 5th and a 6th round pick because they just give away their players to the Eagles. That's what they do.
Farm team.
Yeah. We talked about Leonard Williams. He went to Seattle, and New York got a 2nd and a 2nd round pick this year and a 5th round pick next year in compensation for that. So pretty good trade for both sides, with New York going backwards, it seems, and Seattle really doing a playoff push. So that's, Well,
I think Leonard Williams was in the last year of his contract too, I believe.
Yeah.
And so, you're not getting a second rounder as a compensatory. So they if they knew they weren't going to hang on to him anyway, they made out.
Yeah. The next one on here is the Falcons traded
for Contavious Street.
Yes. They got Contavious Street and a 7th round pick, and Philadelphia gets a 6th round pick. So essentially they moved down in the draft and got a defensive lineman as well.
And they traded for the defensive tackle because Grady Jarrett is lost for the season.
Right.
So Philadelphia had too many, and it made sense.
And there were rumors that Atlanta was the other team involved trying to trade for Sweat before the Bears said, we'll give you a 2nd. So I guess a lot like last year when the Packers were in trade talks for Chase Claypool.
Thank you.
We're like, we'll give you a higher pick. And they were like, all right.
Appreciate you, Chicago.
Yeah. It's just what we do. The next one on here is the Montez Sweat that we talked about earlier. Washington gets a 2nd round pick. The Bears get Sweat and a pass rusher, and I I think he'll be re-signed, if not by the end of this week, before like next week we play on Thursday, and then we'll have 10 days off. I think he'll be signed very soon. It'll be happening soon. They're already working on it. Did you guys want to talk anything about that one anymore? I think we pretty well covered it earlier. With the Cousins injury, the next one on here is Minnesota trading for Josh Dobbs, and they sent a 6th-round pick to Arizona. Got Josh Dobbs and a 7th-round pick in return. I didn't realize they got a pick in that trade as well. So, yeah, like you said, Kyle, they just gave him away. I mean, say what you want about Josh Dobbs. He came in and, I mean, he beat the Cowboys for you. You know,
and it's wild. I mean, Josh Dobbs was cut. He was essentially cut by the Cleveland Browns at the beginning of the season, and then said, "Hold on, wait a minute. We didn't really cut you. We're trading you to the Arizona Cardinals." No, excuse me, they didn't cut him. They had him as the backup. The Bears had cut another quarterback, or were going to cut another quarterback, and then said, "No, we're keeping you. We're trading you." But Josh Dobbs was the starting quarterback week 18 and wild card weekend for the Tennessee Titans last year.
Yeah.
And he signed a week before that to come in and quarterback this team. The guy has bounced around the league so much, but like you said, Aaron, he's a rocket scientist. He's a very, very smart guy. And I think that's definitely helping him stay in the league too. But he hasn't looked bad in Arizona. So Arizona's benching of him was because he was getting traded.
Yeah. That's just I don't know. I thought they'd get more out of him as far as trade compensation. I mean, maybe that's why they didn't go with Tannehill or any of the other options. Because hell, I mean, you give up a 6th-round pick, or you know what I mean, and get a 7th back. Like,
yeah. Plus, Dobbs I think it's a 1-year contract. So they know he's a free agent at the end of the year. If they really are bringing Kirk Cousins back, it's a rental. They're renting Josh Dobbs for the rest of the season.
Yeah. The next one on here is the one you alluded to earlier, Kyle. The Ezra Cleveland traded to Jacksonville. Minnesota gets a 6th-round draft pick in return. So essentially, they gave up a 6th-round pick and they got one back on this one. So they're just moving around the draft already. I don't know if there's much to say about that. I don't even know. I guess it's just a depth piece. I don't think he's a starter or anything.
Yeah, I think he's a backup, but or maybe he's not. I don't know. He's in the last year of his rookie deal. So getting something out of him, I think he was a 2nd-round pick that hasn't lived up to the hype. So I think they're just trying to get a pick out of him because they know they're moving on from him anyway.
Yeah. The next one was probably the biggest one of the trade deadline is Chase Young goes to San Francisco. Washington gets a 3rd-round pick, so they have an extra 2nd and 3rd-round pick next year in the draft. I think it was a good trade for both sides. 49ers, they get to put him back with Bosa, and if he's a 9-game rental, he's a hell of a 9-game rental. If I'm completely honest, I even said this on my Bears podcast last Sunday. I wanted Chase Young, but I knew a lot more about Chase Young. And the more after we traded for Sweat, and I looked at games played and the impact that they've had on the field, it made more sense for me that we traded for Sweat. Now, there's a lot of Bears fans that are really upset that we traded a 2nd-round pick and they traded a 3rd-round pick and got the quote-unquote better player. But I think it's a 9-game rental. I think he hits free agency. And honestly, I would not be surprised if Chase Young goes ring chasing at the end of this season. Go ahead.
That's the thing right now. A 9-game rental. Yeah. It's going to work out for both of them in theory. If he helps them and they win a championship finally, it was worth it for everybody.
Absolutely.
And then he'll go sign in Jacksonville for $200 million probably or something.
For me, though, saying that San Francisco has a hard time keeping players healthy, how long does Chase Young last before he's hurt again and he's not even finishing the season on the active roster? Yeah. I don't know what the offseason looks like for Chase Young, whether they find a way to get him back in the building on a long-term contract because somehow, some way, San Francisco, they pull money out of somewhere and they do that kind of stuff. I
Those
I don't know.
California teams, man, I think they got some offshore accounts or something.
Must be.
'Cause
Well, maybe the NFL
Rams
gives
do
them
the
extra
same.
money because cost of living is so ridiculous.
They get a cost of living adjustment
Yeah.
out there. I was wrong. That was not the last trade on here. There's a couple others. Donovan Peoples-Jones going from Cleveland to the Detroit Lions for a 6th-round draft pick. I was shocked when I saw this come
Yeah,
across.
that's weird. This is very weird.
I thought Donovan Peoples-Jones was a guy that they liked a lot in Cleveland and wanted to keep around. I don't understand. Kyle, you're in that area. Was there were you shocked by this or?
No, I mean Donovan Peoples-Jones hasn't been utilized in Cleveland. He's not one of their top 2 wide receivers. They have Amari Cooper and they have Elijah Moore. Looking at his stats real quick, I mean last year Peoples-Jones surprisingly had over 800 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns, but that's only 50 yards a game.
Yeah, but you also got to think too that Donovan Peoples-Jones was a big time special teams player. So that's what shocked me was one. I mean, I know Marvin Jones that just went away from Detroit. That was a whole scenario. But I don't think Detroit needed him as much as I thought Cleveland liked him. So that one was just weird to me.
Did he play his college ball at Michigan?
Michigan.
Yes.
He has 8 catches for 97 yards this year, which I think those stats don't really line up because Watson hasn't played. But I'm curious if we actually looked at DPJ's stats, what it looked like the first 8 weeks with Cleveland last year with Jacoby Brissett under center versus the last 8 weeks with Deshaun Watson under center. But like I said, Donovan Peoples-Jones, he was an afterthought this year with Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, David Njoku. And that offense, when they have Chubb, that's not really a passing offense anyway.
That's true.
And they still have been a run the ball first type of offense as well. He wasn't being utilized.
Yeah, I think Ben Johnson will find a way to utilize him, especially with Jameson Williams. Even though he's back, he hasn't really done anything. And that was a guy I really liked in college, and I was like, once he gets healthy, look out for that guy. I was terrified when the Lions got him, but
I still got faith. Got faith.
Yeah,
I think what he's been doing is he's been taking the under every week on his own stats. He had 6 targets against the Ravens and didn't catch a single ball.
So he walks around like Johnny Manziel with a stack of cash next to him.
Exactly.
I can't hear you.
Right. He's placing big money bets on himself and making sure he hits the
He's
under.
getting them slips. That's what he's doing.
He's getting them slips.
He's got his Corey slips.
Jameson Williams is a big play guy. You're going to see him over the back half of the season. He'll be there 1 week with a 40, 50, 60-yard touchdown, and the next week he's not going to have a bunch of stats. And I think that is not normally what you would want out of a first-round pick. So unless he can really start putting stuff together, he may not last in Detroit for too long.
Well, they still get to play the Bears twice, so I'm sure he'll figure something out there. And then the final one on this, is the Rasul Douglas trade that you talked about earlier, Kyle. Buffalo gets Rasul Douglas and a 5th-round pick. Green Bay gets a 3rd-round pick. I know Buffalo was one of the teams that was trying to get Jalen Johnson, so they were looking to add a corner, and the Bears' asking price was just too high for theirs. So they go to Rasul Douglas, who I thought had a resurgence with Green Bay. He played for Arizona before, but I think he had made several stops before he finally found a home in Arizona, and then Green Bay brought him in, and he really fit in with them. I'm a little surprised to see Green Bay trading off stuff. Do you think they're tanking, Kyle, or?
I don't know that they're necessarily tanking. I think they looked at a vet who Rasul Douglas, I believe, is in his 30s almost. Somebody who they gave a 3-year, $21 million contract to. And it's funny because he was with Arizona on the practice squad in 2021, and Green Bay signed him from the practice squad. And Arizona was 7-0, 8-0, 9-0, playing against Green Bay. And Kyler threw a pass to AJ Green in the end zone at the end of the game to win it. And Rasul Douglas tipped it to himself and intercepted it to seal the game. And really, him and Devondre Campbell took that year in 2021 to get long-term contracts for these two guys who never really had long-term deals.
Yeah.
But like I said, he's been a leader this year for Green Bay, and with Tre'Davious White going down in Buffalo is really going to help the back half of the season for that defense.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll play this weekend against Joe Burrow, or if he'll need time to get into their learning their schemes and stuff. I'm not sure. Corey, do you have any thoughts on this trade, or
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
yeah?
How many more weeks until the Patriots sign Josh McDaniels to their coaching staff?
Thanksgiving.
Okay.
You know the meme with Bill Belichick walking out? You know, the old meme? I saw that one yesterday on Instagram, and it was like, Raiders fire Josh McDaniels. Here comes Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I'd say Thanksgiving.
I took some time to do some digging on Josh McDaniels, and him and Dave Ziegler, I believe is how you pronounce the last name, the GM of the Raiders, who also came from New England, I believe. They went to college together. So there was a bunch of guys from that college, and I don't think he went to I think it was smaller college. But there was a lot of guys from that organization or that college that are now either coaches or front office staff in the NFL. It's wild.
And maybe we'll talk about it more next week, like coaches on the hot seat. Obviously, Eberflus, Ron Rivera. I don't know. We had a lot of extra stuff to cover this week with the trade deadline, and that'll give us something to think about. Maybe a teaser for next week. We'll talk about some of the coaches that we think ain't gonna make it. Maybe I don't know. We'll get into that later on. But until next week, like, comment, subscribe. Go to Daily Football Roundups YouTube page and subscribe and hit the little bell. It'll tell you every week when we go live. If you listen to us on podcast, please leave us a review. Hopefully a good one. We try our best around here. I think we've had a good show, man. We covered everything, got our 6-pack challenge in, and covered the trade deadline pretty well. Until next time, Corey, why don't you tell them what we got to say here?
Bye.